All right, so we're a bit late, but we're here.
They start to hitch once they get patched.
PlayStation 5.
With an SSD,
We'll see how much they actually give us.
So
Probably
no need to
zero.
make brand new files with the
But we'll see.
changes incorporated into them, which means no installs as you know them today.
All they've been talking
There's
about
yet
is
one more benefit, which is that
numbers
system
right now.
memory can
Not
be
even,
much
hey,
more
yo,
efficiently.
this
On
is
PlayStation 4,
what the
game
specs
data on the
are.
hard
We ain't got
drive
no
feels very
specs
distant
yet.
and difficult to use. By the time you realize
Which is unfortunate. This
priority
boy
very
is just
important. You
going
can
over
imagine
tech
the player
specs.
heading into some new location in the world
The
and again
techiest
requesting
specs.
a few gigabytes of text.
He's like, yo, this is
And
how
while those
NVRAM
textures
works.
are being loaded, an
This is
enemy
actually
shot
insane to
and
me.
has to speak a few dying
This
words.
is so weird.
Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately. On one side, that flash controller connects to the actual flash dies that supply the storage. To reach our bandwidth target of 5 gigabytes a second, we ended up with a 12-channel interface. 8 channels wouldn't be enough. The resulting bandwidth we've achieved is actually 5.5 gigabytes a second. With a 12-channel interface, the most natural size that emerges for an SSD is 825 gigabytes.
Also,
the key question for us was,
why is this man on a stage like
to add
this?
more, but Flash certainly
100%. This is not a live presentation. This is a premiere. No one's going to be in the crowd, not even the employees.
Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at
why not just have
of a broad range of gamers.
just move the podium and it'd be fine, or you have a graphic up somewhere, something. Do something for me, pimpin'.
Games would fit properly on the SSD. We were able to establish that
this is worse than their state of play, and I don't even like. I hate those state of plays. To me, they're pretty boring.
825
if you feel differently, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you like about those state of plays? But this is rough.
We'll go through the details in a moment. Coherency engine.
Show me the goddamn, all right?
Of the overwritten address ranges and
show me what it looks like.
In several dozen
give me a spec breakdown. Don't give me a part breakdown. This is a part breakdown.
As a game developer, when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this. You don't even need to know that your data is compressed. You just indicate what data you'd like to read from your original uncompressed file and where you'd like to put it.
He just admitted that, hey, yo, as a dev, you ain't gonna care about this shit at all.
Invisibly to you.
If you're a dev, you don't care about this shit. Imagine being
thanks to all of that surrounding
a gamer, a consumer,
5 gigabytes a second,
and you're watching this. You're just losing your mind.
100 times faster I/O.
You've already clicked off
and allow the dream of
23 minutes ago, and it only started at 11 my time. So
having said that,
it's supposed to be going for 22 minutes. You click that off at 23 minutes. You just
Flash
did
is
not give a
costly,
shit.
and you may very well want to add storage to whatever we put in the console. Now, the kind of storage you need depends on how you're going to use it. If you have an extensive PlayStation 4 library and you'd like to take advantage of backwards compatibility to play those games on PlayStation 5, then a large external hard drive is ideal. You can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly from there, thus saving the pricier SSD storage for your PlayStation 5 titles, or you can copy your active PlayStation 4 titles to the SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5.
Thank God.
As for which
that's the actual useful information.
We'll get to that in a moment. They connect through the custom I/O unit, just like our SSD does. So they can take full advantage of the decompression, I/O coprocessors, and all the other features I was talking about. Here's the catch, though. That commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed of our SSD need to work flawlessly with any M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the PlayStation 5 SSD was faster than anything available on PC. At the time, commercial M2 drives used PCIe 3.0, and 4 lanes of that cap out at 3.5 gigabytes a second. In other words, no PCIe 3.0 drive can hit the required spec.
Sure.
M2 drives with PCIe 4.0 are now out in the market. We're getting samples and seeing 4 or 5 gigabytes a second from them. By year's end, I expect there will be drives that saturate 4.0 and support 7 gigabytes a second. Having said that, we are comparing apples and oranges, though, because that commercial M2 drive will have its own architecture, its own flash controller, and so on. For example, the NVMe specification lays out a priority scheme for requests that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice. But
I'm just at a loss right now. My mind is just like, yo, this is what we're doing.
Our drives.
We're actually going over just PC specs.
Hook up a drive with only 2 priority levels, definitely, but our custom.
We're not going to get a price point. We're not. I expect a price
rather
point
than the
by
M2
like
drive's flash controller.
July,
and so the
maybe
M2 drive
August.
needs a little extra speed to take care of issues.
And then as soon as they do the price drop, it's going to be a pre-order. So I'm going to guess July or August if it's not delayed because of everything going on.
In PlayStation 5 for M2 drives.
But you can expand it with NVMe. You can do some M2s. That's amazing.
For the height
that'll probably be better than Microsoft's solution.
In fact,
because their solution is like a proprietary card. Well, not proprietary.
Right now, we're getting M2.
Well, no, it's proprietary, but you can get it from other vendors.
In various ways.
So that'll be, you just throw a Samsung as long as it does 5.5 gigabits a second. Gigabits. Do that 5.5 gigawatts a second.
Particular M2 drives.
Useful information that I actually care about.
Once we've
Most consumers don't know what the hell that is.
We should be able to start.
But I enjoy it because I like PCs and things like that.
And which drive samples have benchmarked appropriately high in our testing. It would be great if that happened by launch, but it's likely to be a bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from us. Okay, back to our principles. Balancing evolution and revolution is the second of them.
Holy
this was definitely
shit,
a recurring
how long is this
theme
thing gonna be?
This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely on teraflops as an absolute indicator of performance.
Shout at Microsoft.
And CU count should be avoided.
Hella shout at Microsoft right there.
In the case of CPUs, we all understand this. The PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 each have 8 CPUs, but we never think that the capabilities and performance are equal. It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been getting much larger over time. Adding new features means adding lots of transistors. In fact, the transistor count for a PlayStation 5 CU is 62% larger than the transistor count for a PlayStation 4 CU. Second, the PlayStation 5 GPU is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. What does that mean? One way you can achieve backwards compatibility is to put the previous console's chipset in the new console, like we did with some PlayStation 3s. But that's, of course, extremely expensive.
So
a better way is to incorporate any differences
they'll make your consumers happy,
logic
motherfucker.
into the new console's custom chips.
It'd be expensive if we did that.
Even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro titles rely on is still available in backwards compatibility modes. One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards compatibility is in the console, it's in. It's not as if a cost down will remove backwards compatibility like it did on PlayStation 3. Achieving this unification of functionality took years of efforts by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis.
Oh, so they're going to do it like
Results
Xbox
are excellent, though. We recently took a look at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting
they're going to do a backwards compatibility program just like Xbox.
On PlayStation 5.
Hey, yo, we're now ready to release these on backwards compatibility.
Features, as I said, our strategy was to try to break new ground,
I'll see what y'all doing.
But at the same time not to require use of the new GPU capabilities. Using primitive shaders on PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including smoothly varying level of detail, addition of procedural detail to close-up objects, and improvements to particle effects and other visual special.
So it's like RTX.
Another major new feature of our custom RDNA2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs. The CUs contain a new specialized unit called the
RTX series is out,
which can calculate the intersection of rays with boxes
this
and
has to be
triangles.
super.
To use the intersection engine, first you build what is called an acceleration structure. It's data in RAM that contains all of your geometry. There's a specific set of formats you can use. They're variations on the same BVH concept. Then, in your shader program, you use a new instruction that asks the intersection engine to check a ray against the BVH. While the intersection engine is processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersections, the shaders are free to do other work. Having said that, the ray tracing instruction is pretty memory intensive, so it's a good mix with logic-heavy code.
Sure.
There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines will run just fine on PlayStation 5. But it presents an opportunity for those interested. I'm thinking it'll take less than 1 million rays a second to have a big impact on audio. That should be enough for audio occlusion and some reverb calculations. With a bit more of the GPU invested in ray tracing, it should be possible to do some very nice global illumination. Having said that, adding ray-traced shadows and reflections to a traditional graphics engine could easily take hundreds of millions of rays a second. And full ray tracing could take billions. How far can we go? I'm starting to get quite bullish. I've already seen a PlayStation 5 title that's successfully using ray tracing-based reflections in complex animated scenes with only modest costs. Another set of issues for the GPU involved size and frequency. How big do we make the GPU, and what frequency do we run it at? This is a balancing act. The chip has a cost, and there's a cost for whatever we use to supply that chip with power and to cool it. In general, I like running the GPU at higher frequency. Let me show you why. Here's two possible configurations for a GPU roughly of the level of the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is a thought experiment. Don't take these configurations too seriously. If you just calculate teraflops, you get the same number. But actually, the performance is noticeably different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability of the vector ALU. That's just one part of the GPU. There are a lot of other units. PlayStation 5 is especially challenging because the CPU supports 256-bit native instructions that consume a lot of power. These are great here and there, but presumably only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for major 256-bit instruction usage, we need to set the CPU clock substantially lower or noticeably increase the size of the power supply and fan. So after much discussion, we decided to go with a very different direction on PlayStation 5.
Okay.
We built a GPU with 36
Every time he says that,
CUs.
I'm hoping you show something cool.
RDNA2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4. So if we compare transistor counts, 36 RDNA2 CUs equates to roughly 58 PlayStation 4 CUs.
And he goes, nah,
it is a fairly sizable
year's done, son.
Then we went with a variable frequency strategy for PlayStation 5, which is to say we continuously run the GPU and CPU in boost mode. We supply a generous amount of electrical power,
while this dude
and then
is just
increase
talking
the
dumb
frequency
shit.
of GPU and CPU until they reach the capabilities of the system's cooling solution. It's a completely different paradigm. Rather than running at constant frequency and letting power vary based on the workload, we run at essentially constant power and let the frequency vary based on the workload.
Sure.
We then tackled the engineering challenge of a cost-effective and high-performance cooling solution designed for that specific power level. In some ways, it becomes a simpler problem because there are no more unknowns. There's no need to guess what power consumption the worst-case game might have. As for the details of the cooling solution, we're saving them for our teardown. I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up with. So,
is this teardown happening today?
Can we run the GPU and
can we
CPU
get
with
that
this
tidbit,
strategy?
please?
The simplest approach would be to
Can
look
that
at
just have been the
actual temperature
entire
of the silicon die and throttle
40
the frequency on
minutes
that
we've
basis.
been here?
But that won't work. So it's been tough going making forward progress on audio with PlayStation 4, particularly when PlayStation 3 was such a beast when it came to audio. The SPUs in Cell were almost a perfect device for audio rendering. Simple pipelined algorithms could really take advantage of asynchronous DMA and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit. There's unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4. Probably the most dramatic progress in the PlayStation 4 generation has been with virtual reality.
Yes, VR.
The PSVR hardware has its own audio unit. It supports about 50 pretty decent 3D sound sources. And this provided a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience. Not to oversimplify, but here were our goals for audio.
Please,
on
dear
PlayStation
God,
4.
oversimplify.
The first goal was great audio for everyone, not just VR users or soundbar owners or headphone users. That meant audio had to be part of the console. It couldn't be a peripheral. The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to pick and choose what sounds would get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound in the game to have dimensionality.
That's neat. That's neat.
And
That's
finally,
the next
we
audio
wanted
experience
to
in gaming.
really take on
Headphones
the
are amazing
challenges
when you're
of
playing
presence
games. Like, oh my
and
God.
locality. Now, when we say presence, we mean the feeling that you're actually there. You've entered.
Like if they do like
the matrix.
binaural audio,
It's
you're
not,
just
of
hearing
course,
this
something we
loud
thought we could
explosion over
perfectly
here while
achieve.
it's quiet
The
over here.
idea was that
That's
if we stopped using
fantastic.
just a rain sound and instead used lots of 3D audio sources for raindrops hitting the ground at all sorts of locations around you, then at some point your brain would take a leap and you'd begin to have this feeling of real presence inside the virtual world of the game. This has the capacity to affect your appreciation of the game, just like music in a game does. The concept of locality is simpler. It's just your sense of where the audio is coming from. To the right of you, behind you, above you. This can immerse you further in the game, and it can also directly enhance the gameplay.
Sure, true.
To use Dead Space as an example, I know, old school, you're fighting enemies in fairly dark, spooky locations.
Spooks.
Back in the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right. But with 3D audio with good locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn and you take it out.
Sure.
So,
You're
how
playing
do we
Dead
know
Space.
where a sound is coming from?
It's creepy
in the
as
first
hell. You're
place?
gonna miss fire.
Well, all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking. Based on what direction the sound is coming from, sound waves bounce around inside the ear, there's some constructive and destructive interference, and the result is a change in volume. The phase of the sound also shifts, depending on what path the sound wave took to reach the ear canal.
This is just word salad
Unfortunately,
right now.
the processing has to be done in frequency domain rather than time domain, so there's multiple fast Fourier
'Cause there's
transforms needed for every sound source.
There's
for every
realistically
audio
no
tip.
reason you need
That's
to show
a
this.
lot of
For,
multiplies. This
you know,
computational
talking about
complexity
your
was the
console,
determining
yes, you
factor
can
for
do
our
a teardown,
strategy.
you can do a
It meant we
breakdown
had to
of
bite
the
the
parts,
bullet
the
and
pieces.
design and build a
That should be a
custom
quick
hardware unit
overview.
for
Like,
3D
hey, yo,
audio.
this is how we can be like
Collectively, we're
5
referring to the hardware unit
minutes
and the
of a
proprietary
piece.
algorithms we
The,
run
hey, yo,
on it as
CPU, here's a
Tempest
breakdown of it.
3D
GPU,
audio
here's a
tech.
breakdown of it.
The meaning of
SSD,
3D
here's a
audio
breakdown.
and technology should be pretty obvious here.
Power
As for
consumption,
Tempest,
here's a
I feel it
breakdown of it.
really
Here's its
reflects our
specs,
goals
here's what
with
it can
audio.
do.
It suggests
Things
a
like
certain
that. And
intensity
you'd
of
get through
experience
this
and
in like
also hints
20
at
to
your
30
presence
minutes.
within it. We're calling the hardware unit that we
And
built
you will be
the
given some
Tempest
decent
engine.
information. You
It's
don't need
based
to
on
dive,
AMD's
deep
GPU
dive
technology.
into
We modified
audio
the compute unit in
to 3D
such a way
audio
as to
to
make it
show
very
pictures
close
of,
to the
hey,
SPUs
we did
in
this hot
PlayStation
shit,
3.
y'all proud?
Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest engine has no caches,
No reason
just
for
like an
this.
SPU. All data access is via DMA, just like an SPU.
This is a
Our
seminar
target was
style.
that it would have more power than a
You
CPU,
don't
thanks
do
to the
this with your
parallelism that a
product
GPU
about
can
the
achieve,
console.
and that it would be more efficient than our GPU thanks to the SPU-like architecture. The goal
Hell,
being
if
to make
you're trying to
possible
dev a
near
game
100%
and you want to
utilization
understand how, yo,
of the
I want my
CU's
audio experience to be
vector units.
fantastic. I want to know how
Where we ended up
the
is
architecture
a
of this
unit with
platform
roughly
works.
the same
Cool.
simple power and bandwidth
This is
as
for you.
all 8 Jaguar
If you're
cores
just
in
like
the PlayStation
Joe
4
Schmo sitting
combined. If
at
we
the
were to use the
office
same
or at
algorithms as
home or
PSVR,
anticipating
that's enough for
this,
something like
and you see all this,
5,000
you're like,
sound sources.
what does
But of
this
course,
mean?
we want to
What-
use more complex
okay, but what does it
algorithms,
look
and we
like?
don't
How
need
much does it
anything
cost?
like that number of sounds.
What can it run?
It would have been wonderful
Shit
if
like
a
that.
simpler
Like, come on,
strategy, such
man.
as using
Come on.
Dolby Atmos peripherals, could have achieved our goals, but we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with licensed soundbars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 32 that Atmos supports. And finally, we wanted to be able to throw an overwhelming amount of processing
okay.
power at the
For
problem.
this audience, I
and
wouldn't
it
be
wasn't
surprised if it
clear
was
what
game
any
devs
peripheral might
and
have inside of it.
just
In
game
fact,
devs, honestly.
With the Tempest engine,
and some
we
employees just
even
for
got enough
filling
power
out
that we can
the
allocate
room.
some to the games.
That
to
probably
the
has like
extent
15
that
people
games
in it.
want to make use of convolution reverb and other algorithms that are either computationally
Damn it!
expensive
I was
or
hoping for
need
something
high bandwidth.
interesting. Maybe they'll just save
But
it for
the
the last 5
primary
minutes.
purpose of the Tempest
They're probably going to
engine
go for an
remains
hour.
3D audio.
Hopefully.
Now, 3D audio is a major academic research topic. It's safe to say that no one in the world has all of the answers. And the set of algorithms that has to be invented, tuned, or implemented to realize our vision for 3D audio is immense. For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making a sound source appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations.
I'm just asking myself, who the hell this
3D
presentation
game
is for?
audio, we have to
I keep going back to that question.
The sound to a similar level.
This ain't coming
after
out in
which
2020,
we'll start in
y'all.
on setups with more
There's no way this
speakers,
is
such as
happening in
6-channel
2020. If they're
surround.
just now talking about this.
It's now to the point where some
Unless
of the
this is
PlayStation
very
5 games in
old and they're
development
just
are
now doing a
extensively
premiere
using these
for it.
systems. One of the game demos
This-
allows you to toggle between conventional PlayStation 4
This was
style
probably
stereo
for
audio and our new
GDC, I'd
3D
say.
audio. I listened with just an
And then they
ordinary
had to
pair of
record it for a
over-the-ear
premiere.
headphones,
But
and wow!
given
I could
everything
feel
that's
a
happening,
difference.
we may
3D
be
audio
looking
has
at
that dimensional feel to it.
if
Conventional
it hits
stereo
this
audio
year,
feels smashed flat
which
by comparison. The
they haven't even shown a
improvement
single
is
thing
obvious. So, a big advancement, but have I
gonna
entered
say
the Matrix?
it's
Does my brain believe I'm really
60.
there?
I don't
was
even go
talking about
70-30.
earlier
I'm
when I
gonna even say
explained our
that.
target of
70% is going to happen
well,
probably
the
by
answer is
summer
no,
of next year.
but you've probably caught
If it
on
gets
to
pushed
what's
back.
missing here,
If it,
namely
you know,
whose HRTF
70, like
is
30%,
being
it
used.
still happens.
It wasn't mine.
And I could be
it was
very
the
wrong.
default HRTF. The audio team analyzed the hundreds
But
that they measured and chose the one they
From
felt
what
was the
I'm
closest fit
seeing,
to
from
the
what they're
total
giving
game-playing
us,
audience.
it ain't
This
happening.
shows a
Ain't
piece of the
happening.
default HRTF on the left and my
This is
HRTF
rough.
on the right. You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details are quite different. With the default HRTF, as I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of realism, which
Like
is to
they're
say that when using
actually
headphones
showing
in my HRTF,
audio
I occasionally
patterns
get fooled and
and
even think a
heat
sound is
maps
coming from the real world when
and
it's actually coming from the game.
frequencies.
A corollary to this is that there are a few
This
people
is
whose HRTFs
nutty
are
to-
sufficiently far from the default
Who-
HRTF, that's
I just
the
don't know
red
who-
dot here, that they can
whose thought
toggle
process
between
led to
PS4
this.
style and PS5
This style of
style audio
presentation,
and
this-
not sense much difference.
This way
I've
of
had
talking
a
about
few
it,
people
this
describe the PlayStation 5
topic,
3D
the
audio as sounding
subjects.
like
I just
a
wanna know
bit
whose
better
idea this
stereo
was.
audio. Presumably they're the
And
ones
just
at
sit
the
them
very
down and go,
edges of this
why?
diagram. Which means
'Cause
what HRTF you're using is key. I'd like everyone to be able to experience what I'm
It's just
experiencing, but
odd.
obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big
I guess they want to
topics going
differentiate
forward
this from a
as the
state of
Tempest
play, but a state of
technology
play at this point would have
matures.
been better.
At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be
'Cause at
offering a
least
choice
it's
of
fun,
5
it's
HRTFs.
upbeat,
There's
it's
a
light.
simple test where you
This
pick the
dude
one
is
that
talking
gives you the best
dry,
locality.
technical,
That's just the first step, though. This is an
muted
open-ended
colors
research
everywhere,
topic.
no music.
Maybe you'll be sending us a
nothing.
photo of your ear, and we'll
And this-
choose
he's
a neural
probably
network
very
to pick
passionate
the
about
closest
this right now,
HRTF in our library.
which sucks.
Maybe you'll be sending us
for
a video
him.
of your
Like,
ears
it's
and
not
your
just
head,
a
and we'll make a
shitty thing to
3D
be
model
passionate
of them
about
and
this, but it
synthesize
just
the HRTF.
sucks
Maybe you'll
for him
play an
because the
audio
audience
game
he's speaking to
tune
probably
your
isn't even
HRTF.
looking
We'll
for
be
this
subtly
information.
changing it as you play and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score, meaning that it matches you the best. This is a journey we'll all be taking together over the next few years. Ultimately, we're committing to enabling everyone to experience that next level of realism.
If they give us what it looks like,
Hopefully,
then it can
I've
still
been able
happen.
to illustrate a bit about our design and decision
Even with all that's going on, there'll probably be a
and why
limited quantity
PlayStation
of
5
them,
has
but
the
it'll
feature set
probably
that it
still
does.
happen.
Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the development community takes advantage of that feature set. I'm hoping for the completely unexpected.
I hope he just
audio,
pulls it out
ray
the podium.
tracing,
And that's why he had the
capabilities of
podium the
SSD,
entire time. He just
or
goes,
something else.
"Hey, it looks like
I guess we'll find
this."
out soon enough. Thank you for your
Oh,
time today.
Please. Oh, you sons of bitches. Oh my God. That was rough. That was bad. But let me know what you all thought about this entire thing in the comment section down below. Cause this was rough. This man, it was bad. It wasn't very good. I was hoping for at least one thing about it. We didn't get anything. Not hide nor a hair of what this thing's gonna look like, or a solid spec sheet of it. Trash. I don't. I hope PlayStation never does that again. I hope they learn their damn lesson from this and all the angry tweets they're gonna get. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you feel about this presentation? What you're going to see is a very chopped up version, and that's still going to be a pretty damn long video. And as always, this is Matt Made. If you're a fan of gaming, hit that like button, strike that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time for a gameplay that's definitely better than this. Peace.